Have you ever wondered what makes a great user interface? In today's world, where every click and swipe matters, where both aesthetics and usability play crucial roles, an app's user experience can either make it or break it. It's very important that aspiring UX designers understand the basics of visual design and interfaces. But none of the theory will make sense unless I actually show you how it's done. So in this video, I have actually reviewed real student work. Somebody who has just graduated out of college, self-taught designer who has done a UI redesign case study. I will be honestly dissecting all the good things about it and the bad things about it, and also tell you what is the right way to approach such problems. For this video, we will be redesigning the Bank of Baroda World iOS app. There's a lot to cover, so without wasting any further time, let's get started. Alright, welcome to episode number 1, where I will review student work of UI redesigns, and this time we have the Bank of Baroda World app for the iOS. So the entire video is split into 3 modules. We'll first understand the problem statement, not about the app itself, but what are these videos for, and then some expectations from this UI redesign challenge and what I will be doing on the student work. Then we will go through the project file and how this person had collected inspiration. So I will give my own ideas and my own inputs on how you should approach the project, how you should collect your inspiration, how to get better ideas. And then in the last module, I will show you how I improved even that student work. So that student first took the Bank of Baroda app, redesigned it, then I took her work and then redesigned it even more. So you will see 2 stages of evolution of that entire UI. So let's start with module number 1. See, I'll first tell you the goal of these videos. This is not a UX case study review, okay? So there are some people who I know who are learning design right now. They're just beginners. So I told them that why don't you pick applications that you use and why don't you show me how you redesign them and show me the entire process. So my team picks an app and then they redesign the UI, and then they have sent me that small redesign case study. And the goal is to understand how do we even solve problems, how do we take inspiration, and how do we improve our visual design. Okay, this is not a UX optimization exercise. So she had sent me this file and this is how the first page looks like, right? I've just given like a quick preview. And just to give you insight about the student, I'm gonna give her a fake name. I'm gonna call her Ria because I don't want to reveal her identity because she's still a student, right? So we are here breaking down her work. It is important that we don't reveal her identity, right? She's an engineering student, so she's not learning design professionally. So she's a self-taught designer, and in terms of learning, she has finished 50% of my videos. So even she has not watched all of my videos, which makes her a good candidate because that is usually how my audience looks like right now. My audience on YouTube has still not watched all of my content, right? So this is the kind of work that she has created after learning from just 50% of the videos, and she's been doing some self-learning as well. She has done some design internships but no work experience. So she has just graduated from her engineering college and she's looking for work, right? Now let's understand the app that we're going to redesign. It's the Bank of Baroda World app for iOS, and Ria has used the app before, so she had some context and she picked 3 core screenshots. So one screenshot was the home screen, then the transaction history screen, and then there's a screen where you can have information about your one specific account and your debit card, okay? And she took 3 to 4 days to work on this. So I had given her like a project format and she followed some of that format, but now I'll show you how did her Figma file look like and what all mistakes did she create, okay? So let's look at her file. I had asked her to create one page just defining the problem statement, the user challenges that she faced, the objectives and goals, and a quick user flow of the app, because these 4 things give you some clarity about the project before you even start redesigning, right? So even when you're redesigning, it's not just about showing me the UI, right? Even when you put your own work on Medium, on Behance, you need to show the reader what you have done in terms of research and not make this entire thing about research, but some context, right? And this is how her file looked like when I opened it for the first time. Now, some very important things that she could have fixed. First of all, make sure you name your Figma files properly, especially if you're sending them for review. Instead of having a small case file name, BOB World App Redesign, this could have been something like BOB UI Redesign by Ria, right? Which makes a lot of sense because if you're sending this to a recruiter, every single touch point matters, right? A lot of people forget to give public access to their Figma files. This is a common mistake that I have seen when I ask for portfolio. Then organize your layers within the files properly. So Ria has done this pretty well. She had an inspiration page, actual app screens page, redesign and prototype, right? But you can always add some emojis, make them more relevant. So you just need to make sure that all of of your pages in the Figma file are structured accordingly. Now, if you're on the free plan of Figma, that is not possible. So you need the pro plan. Now, you also need to name your page as well, and within the pages also organize your files properly. So when I saw her Figma files, she had just pasted a bunch of screenshots like this, right? And this is very difficult for the user to understand. Very difficult, I'm pretty sure, even for Ria to go through all of this inspiration. So when you are collecting your inspiration, these are the foundations. You need to do this very well. So the correct way to do this is you first create a header component. Okay, you create a header component where you just have a rectangle, some subtext, and your main heading. So once you use this component, you can have two variants of this as well. So I have a dark variant and a light variant. And notice how I took her dribble screenshots and I've put them right underneath the dribble shot. So when I'm going through the inspiration, I know that because this is dribble, I should primarily limit my inspiration on a visual level, right? So please make sure that you organize your inspiration by the platform. At this point, I take inspiration from Dribble, Mobin, SaaS interface if I'm working on web, page flows if I'm working for web, and I think mostly Mobin when it comes to mobile design, because I think Mobin covers everything, right? You also need to collect only the best and relevant screenshots, because if you add too many screenshots, you will give yourself decision fatigue. So I am 100% sure that when Ria was going through all of these screenshots, she would be very intimidated because there's no structure to her inspiration. There's no structure as to what you need to pick and what is relevant for her, right? So the correct way to do this is that first of all, you put them under your header files, you categorize them, you use tidy up for keeping them in a well uniform grid. And even within those screenshots, make sure that they are put in specific buckets. So for example, when I saw Ria's screenshots, these were Mobin screenshots. On one side, she has Neo Financial, then Wise, then Revolut. Now, on a first impression, they probably look like the same app because the color schemes are so similar, but they're not the same app. So the correct way to do this would look something like this, that you have one header for Mobin inspiration, then below Mobin inspiration, you have Revolut in a different color. So I have two variants of the same component, and then all my Revolut screens are in one place, and then all of my other apps are in different places. So there are some apps where I've only picked one screen, so you can have a smaller width for those components, but at least when I'm going through my inspiration, my brain is thinking in a structural manner, right? So don't mix multiple apps in one single row, how she did it here, right? And use a different fill-in header for level 2 organization. So you notice this is level 2 organization, right? So for this, you can always have a different color. It's just a good way to organize these files. Now you'll understand why I have done this, right? Now you'll slowly understand the value of this organization. Once I have collected all my screenshots, I go back to the screens that I have to redesign. And what I do is that I keep that original screen on the left side and then all the relevant inspiration on the right side. And then I write down important pointers. For example, in this case, I really like the fact that they have headings for each category, right? I really like the top navigation, which remains pinned. And within the top navigation, I like the back icon and the settings icon. So what I'm doing is that I'm picking one screenshot, and it's not like I'm changing this screen again and again. I'm taking this screen, keeping it on the left side, and then I'm changing this screen again and again. So in this shot, I changed the screen to an iOS payment app. So iOS has published this on Figma community, right? So this is their iOS library. Here, I really like how they have put the current account status on the top, but because in most cases, this is the most important information that I regularly want to see. I really like how the cards are designed because they are very minimal and very scalable. If I were to change the color, any number, any name, any guideline, any logo would fit very properly. And if I were to make this black on 15% and white on 15%, then all I need to do is change this background color and the entire card would look very seamless. In fact, I also like this element right here, this manage card, right? Because I can quickly see if I can switch in between different accounts, right? So the floating button was very cool, and the recent transactions was also very nice because it is not listing the entire list of transactions, it is giving me the recent ones. Within that, the plus ones are in a green color, and then they have a see all button, right? So the thing is, when I'm pointing out all of these things explicitly in my brain keeps on referencing the original screenshot, and then my brain is like, oh, this can go here, this can go here, like that. So this is how you collect inspiration properly. For the transaction history screen, I really liked this UI right here, right? I really like the fact that all of these elements had a DP, the date, they were all in this cute card, and I really loved how each of the list items has a chevron icon. So the list of transactions is very clear. They only show the top 5, and then you can actually see more if you were to tap on this button right here. Then there are individual chevrons, and then the secondary list at the bottom was very cool. So they used a dotted outline and a dotted line in the middle to separate these with a white fill on the icon followed by some illustrations in the middle, right? Because this is how the Bank of Baroda transaction history looks right now. So it is really not familiar on how you can fix this, right? So this is module number 2 where I showed you how I take inspiration, and you can obviously imagine that this is extremely helpful if you do these foundations correct. Now let's switch to module number 3 where we will see how Ria redesigned the same screens and what was her documentation process throughout. So I had asked her to create these annotation cards, right, where she can put in comments for each of these sections. So this was the account screen and this is the redesign. So she has mentioned how there's an easy toggle between the accounts and the transactions page, right? And the card mimics the real world debit cards, so it's just easy and more familiar to the eyes. And then she has used less technical words to convey the same meanings, right? So maybe these can slightly be complicated. Very few people would even know what is LRS, outward remittance, whereas in this case she has made it transfer funds globally, right? So copy plays a huge role in this, right? But then I could again see a lot of issues. For example, the padding is off, it's very tight, the icons are very stark. I personally feel that so many fill icons make it very heavy. This distance and this distance is not equal. You have too many shadows, too many strokes. But yeah, overall I think the changes make a lot of sense, right? Now in transaction history, as I said, Jacob's law says that users spend most of their time on other apps, so it is better to create UI which is similar to popular UPI apps, right? So this is the version that she has created. She has put these options on the very top. You have transaction history and then you have all of your items in place with a proper DP in place, right? But one issue here is that she has added pet images in front of the names, which I feel will not work out for a lot of people because not everybody would be comfortable, right? Not everybody likes dogs, not everybody likes cats, right? So it's better to just put initial, right? You will see this in Google Pay as well. Then for the card screen, she has used Hick's law. She has tried to minimize the number of options, and she has also redesigned this tab right here. So you have all of these options in this case, but I feel that she could have removed the shadows. I think these many shadows just don't make sense, right? She has also created a credit card screen. So there's a different call to action for this specific part. So she's saying that bringing uniformity by making all of them alike makes more sense. She has also added quick actions here that will quickly tell you the due amount, the unbilled amount, the bank office. But I still feel that the visual design could have been more modern. So I think she's done really good in terms of the UX. But in terms of the redesign, I feel that things could have been more cleaner, right? So just to summarize everything that she's done so far, when we talk about all the good things, I really like that she limited all the number of options, right? So the options were lesser. She's made the colors more consistent because you had a lot of colors right here. She redesigned the tab bar, which I think was a huge improvement. I really like the floating icon right here. She's made the icons more relevant and more uniform because these icons were just too detailed. And she has also added an option of accommodating multiple accounts, right? So you have multiple cards here and each card is signifying a savings account. So this is one behavior where I feel the users will get confused because you are expecting this for credit cards, but for savings account, I'm not sure if we can use this format right here because one savings account can have a credit card and a debit card, right? So all the things that are wrong, I feel that she didn't try changing the information architecture. She stuck to how this entire flow worked. She could have actually explored a better flow because a lot of things are too visible upfront. Then there are no components in the Figma file that I saw. It was very unorganized. The best way is to show one component and then create different variants of it. So all of these were not in properly arranged components, or even if there were components, I couldn't see them. There were too many options to choose from. I think even here there are so many things competing for my attention, and then the tap areas are very small. So this button right here is too small for tapping. They're too close to each other. There's a huge chance that even my parents, they might just tap offers instead of passbook, right? When we come to this screen, of course, I really like that the history list is more familiar and she's used good dummy copy also. I really like the fact that she has used good copy, but I think she got a little lazy when it comes to the timestamps. So the timestamps were same and that just made it look very fake. But I really appreciate that July 10 is on the top and July 9 is at the bottom, but the year says 2021, which was very weird. I also feel she could have made the pricing different and made it right aligned. So I'm pretty sure that by default this text is left aligned. This is rookie designer mistake that I used to make. It is only after you add more text you realize that, oh, this component has to be right aligned, right? So the issue here is that you switch from all accounts to transaction history. My question is, if you have multiple accounts, how do I know this transaction is from account number 1 or account number 2? So it is not clear which account this transaction is from. Then when it comes to the card screens, I think the card looks obviously way more cleaner. I really like how the tap to view card details are now in hyperlink, so you can know that you can tap on it, and the apply for debit card is uniform. right? So this is now a part of this list. But then my question is, what if it doesn't need to be uniform? What if you had to call out this thing as a specific CTA? So I personally feel that the shadows are a lot. It could have been cleaner if the shadows were not there. You don't need to use so many shadows because then all of them are competing for my attention. So shadows are good for floating cards, for primary CTAs, for modas, but if you put them in an accordion, they just become very heavy, right? Then why arrows and not chevrons? Why would you put these heavy arrows when you can just use a simple chevron? And what is this white rectangle? I can see this white rectangle here. I'm not sure if this was a component mistake or some issue in the rendering, but I could see this in the actual component. So I'm not sure what this is for. And then component properties were not clear, constraints were not applied. So when I stretched the screen, I saw that the constraints were not there. Now folks, big companies, when they go through your Figma files, they will notice all of these things. If you don't have your components, your styles, your typography styles, now they've also introduced variables, right? So it's okay if you don't use variables, but constraints is a concept that has been in the game for very, very long. So you need to include these things on time before you send your Figma files for review. Now let me show you how I approach the same redesign. I'm not going to go into the details of it because the video has already exceeded 15 minutes. But what I usually do is that I keep the original screen, then I create an annotation card with list of all the features, and then I've also kept Ria's design on the right side just to see if she has missed something important. So I did this for the home screen and the transaction history. I did the same for transaction history as well, and then I re-attempted the entire redesign by going through all the notes that I had created when I was collecting my inspiration. So for my first screen, this is the redesign that I have created. Now, to be honest, I personally feel that debit card, credit card, variable, all of these things should be in a specific flow. So all of this information should be visible only when I am in my accounts section. So I've not redesigned the home screen because that would have taken a lot of time. So just to give you a quick overview of how I approach redesigns, I've picked like the easier screens. So in the my account screen, I have added a new component that helps me switch in between different accounts. You have your current balance on the top, and then you have your list of cards where it is a left aligned list. So the first card is already here. There's nothing on the left side, and then you can obviously see that there are more cards on the right side. Notice how the component is very, very scalable. I have added 2 circles on 15% white opacity. Now a lot of people might say that this would confuse between MasterCard and Visa, which is a valid point. So you can pick whatever pattern, just make sure that it is scalable. And then at the very bottom, you have recent transactions as well. So if I were to show you this screen individually, some important things that I've added here is that the search icon is on the top right corner without any border. So I remember Ria had added an ellipse and added a shadow to that ellipse as well. There's no need for it, right? Just keep it very, very simple. Just have a chevron that allows you to exit that flow, make this entire header component pinned. Then you have an option to change your current account. See how I have added hierarchy by boldening this thing and by adding a medium font to the entire account number, because it's not that necessary to actually see what is your account number, but you need to know that this is your current account, this is your savings account, this is your job account, whatever it is, right? And then you also have your current balance. I have made the decimal values slightly smaller because these values are usually not that useful, but you need to see them. And then in the transactions column, what I've done is I've actually created 3 components, right? And obviously you have to be very mindful about the fact that when you see a dribble shot versus when you see applications in real life, the way data is sent is very, very different, right? So you know that you would never get any data that says hall or cinema hall or Amazon. It probably has a very weird text, something like X salaries, cinema, yevo, Amazon, ... So you have to truncate all of that text. You have to put in the date, and for the amount, if something is being added, I've added a green color, made sure it is accessible with a chevron. If something has been debited, then it is in black, and then you also have an option to see them all one by one, right? So even when I was creating these components on my Figma files, I made sure that my variants, my constraints, all of these things were in place. So this icon right here, this is when the machine cannot identify. This is when the machine can identify the category of the purchase. And then if your POS machine is sending a logo, then it can always show that logo as well. But usually you don't get the logo. I've just added this logo right here as a concept that if it is possible, then it would be great, right? So what I did is that I went through all of my banking apps in the Sindh, Axis Bank, Amex, and I actually saw how this text looks like. And I realized that that entire string is very, very wide. So if I were to tap on this icon, if I were to make a new UI for that experience, I need to make sure that that entire string is accommodated, because that string tells me whether this was a POS transaction, whether this was a UPI transaction, from what account this came. So that also has notes. So if you've added notes from a fund transfer, those notes are also available in that transaction name itself. So truncating that transaction is always not that useful. Then I have created a list for our quick actions as well, where I have created these accordions without the shadows, and notice how clean this looks. You have relevant icons, you have chevrons on the right side. And for that card thing, you remember that credit card modal, it can come under best offers, and you can add a fill to it and actually show the preview of the card itself. And you can also incentivize CTR by actually mentioning free rewards worth XYZ numbers, because you want people to apply for the card, right? Like, people will not just apply randomly. So there is so much that you can do in this. To be honest, if I were to show you a quick comparison, you can see how many things could have been improved, how many things I've just eradicated just to make this video more simple to understand. But the only reason why I could get to this point in just a span of 30 to 45 minutes is because I did my inspiration well. It's because I organized all of my data well. So if you need to understand more of these examples, more of this UI redesign practices, we have created a free playlist called UI redesigns, where I have been taking folks through all of my process, every single thing in detail. Trust me, if you're learning UI design, there's a lot that you can pick from this free playlist, right? No matter what you learn, please make sure you're documenting all your learnings on Notion. If you don't know what Notion is, if you don't know how documentation works, I have created a free video on the basics of Notion, where you can see how I have been documenting everything that I learned since 2019. There's also a free UX design course. I'm pretty sure you would already know about it, but apart from that course, we have a video that is called 10 UX design resources as good as a UX degree. Very powerful resource. All are free, extremely underrated. If you're a student, I'm telling you, they will really help you a lot. Let me know in the comments section if you want more of these videos, because I know that this is student work, so there is a lot of practical insight that you can get. I will be publishing this PDF file as well in the comment section, so you can download this PDF and take notes. In fact, we've been making some very cool videos on redesigns, on UX breakdowns, on ChatGPT, Midjourney, and even spatial design. So I've been creating free videos on how you can design apps for the Vision Pro in January or February. If you know this field, I'm telling you, you will be very valuable in the job market. Let me know in the comment section if there's a specific topic that you want me to cover. I'll make sure to include it next time. I have also created a broadcast channel on Instagram where I share resources, what I am learning behind the scenes. So you can always follow that broadcasting channel by going to Instagram. My handle is anshmehra.ai. Please make sure you click on subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. I hope that you're taking care of your mind and body. This is your dost Ansh Mehra signing out. If you like this video, make sure you click on like and hit the subscribe button. I regularly upload videos on UX design, marketing, and storytelling.